Marvin, please, man.
Spoiler warning. For real, Lulu has reached the lowest point. Throughout the season, we have witnessed the youngest Thomas brother go into a vicious spiral and essentially give up on living his life. Although he is still breathing, he has been trapped in a never-ending loop of pain and hasn't been living for some time. And while he's been attempting to avoid his family as well as his emotions, Power Book 3, Raising Kanan Season 3 Episode 9 puts an end to that. At this time, everything that could be said about Lulu has been said. We've seen him battle. We've seen him fumble. He has put himself and others at risk, as we have witnessed. More than anything else, though, we have witnessed him pleading with people to assist him in silence. When Lulu felt as though his life was truly ending, you could see the anguish on his face and the hopelessness in his voice, even though it didn't look like he needed assistance when he was brandishing a gun at everyone. Every Thomas sibling is a proud individual. Even though they are aware of their shortcomings, they don't go around the town with placards that list all of their problems. Lulu drank himself to death for an hour until Howard came to get him, and then he unloaded some more of the burden from his shoulders. But even confessing to crimes didn't make him feel better because he was unable to think clearly and couldn't accept what he had done because he had no support at all. For many people, admitting when they need help and asking for it can be very terrifying because it demands vulnerability. Furthermore, a lot of people believe that showing sensitivity equates to weakness, and that doing so could expose them to further heartache. Without the support of those who care about you and want the best for you, it can be extremely difficult to face and defeat your demons. And that's not what Lulu has. He feels vulnerable and alone, and he knows that he will never be able to escape the prison he has placed himself in if no one stands up for him. He doesn't want to die, but he feels like death. Was there anything more depressing than listening to Lulu cry out for his life over and over? The way he uttered Marvin's name was akin to a prayer, asking for some sort of peace. The situation in that car, hearing Lulu beg for forgiveness and for his brothers, can only be described as heartbreaking.
Don't leave me out there like that, Marvin.
I started crying when he begged Marvin not to be left alone in the cold. Malcolm Mays has given Lulu his all this season, and while it can't be simple to maintain that attitude all the time, he gave it everything he had on the field for this hour. Raquel was acting normally as she approached their brother, but man, I was expecting for Marvin to give in. Marvin and Raquel were acting really stoically. Given how deeply sorrowful Lulu's cries were, I'm not sure how he didn't. Although Lulu was certain that he was being led to his demise, I don't believe that will be the case. In an ideal world, they're sending him to some secret location in the woods where he can receive treatment for his trauma, depression, and alcoholism without anyone asking any questions. A safe haven where he can be himself and work out his complex emotions toward himself and the people in his life without fear of reprisal. Though I've been deeply concerned for weeks about Lulu's safety, I don't think Raquel and Marvin had a direct role in his passing. Although Raquel has a cold heart, killing her brother, she is not Ronnie. Now that Raquel and Marvin are functionally aware of the feds, Lulu's ongoing decline poses enough of an issue to warrant his removal from the area. Howard's admission that he deliberately withheld the information in order to make Marvin the scapegoat cleared up all of my questions about his role in keeping the pressure on Marvin. And darn it if Howard wasn't making some very fair arguments. Even though Marvin is the MVP and doesn't deserve to lose for everything his family has been a part of, this task force will not disband. They have no intention of packing up their ball and leaving. Until they find the information that will finally make everything make sense, they will not stop clawing and crawling.
You trying to say that I'm in business with some drug dealer?
To be honest, Marvin is a low-hanging fruit for them, but that's precisely what they want, because getting something on him may lead them to a whole criminal operation. Howard's hands are so filthy that they will never be completely clean, and it's obvious that he's come to the realization that he could only divert attention and ignore problems for so long until they cease to function. Howard has always put himself, Kanan, and Raquel first in that sequence. Assuming he keeps his lips shut, Marvin, sensing the heat, leaves the three of them in the clear. It's easy to assume Marvin would, given what we know about him, especially in light of Gerald's betrayal. In every aspect of his life, Marvin has made an effort to improve himself. From the way he raises Raquel, helps Raquel and their company, and makes an effort to foster his bond with Gerald. He wasn't helping Gerald feel better about himself. He wanted to aid someone he thought of as a friend, and he did so because it felt right. The fact that Gerald was completely taken by surprise by Gerald's deception says it all. He felt they had developed a sincere friendship that benefited them both, so he was shocked to learn that Gerald was a snitch. There were countless instances during this hour when you couldn't help but feel terrible for those whose lives were coming apart all around them.
Everything you've done for yourself. You ain't no friend.
Ain't no kind of father neither. You ain't shit.
And who were totally unprepared for it. The idea that Gerald might go to jail confused Marvin more than the reality that Gerald wasn't actually his friend. Even though the feds don't now have enough evidence to imprison Marvin, they nevertheless pursue Jukebox in the wake of her breakthrough performance. One of those heartbreaking moments I mentioned was watching the joy drain from Jukebox's wings. Because when Tanner walked in to take her away, she was just getting over the high of having realized a dream and seeing it all go up in smoke. Jukebox has a good voice, but she would never rat out her family by singing like a canary. Whatever you think of the Thomas family, I've certainly said enough. They don't slander one another, notwithstanding Lulu's occasional drunken outbursts. But Jukebox was more concerned about her future in Buddha being in peril than she was about her family perhaps being in trouble. The main attraction was Jukebox, but is it possible for the front man of your budding R&B group to be involved in a federal investigation? You had to feel so bad for Jukebox because she was still thinking about the future and was quite enthusiastic about Buddha's potential. And there were a plethora of options. Everybody has questioned what would make Jukebox turn into the cold, calculating girl we met during Power, someone who was quite unlike her younger self. And we have discovered a highly promising applicant. Unexpectedly, Kanan attended Jukebox's performance. However, it's unclear if he was there to see Jukebox or Crystal, as he left before we could truly find out. Occasionally, you catch little glimpses of the former Kanan, such as the time he threw Famous a bone following Ronnie's attack.
Let the fuck go, man.
Nevertheless, they are brief moments because the next he's flashing his fangs and acting like a grown-up in a playhouse. Rackle and Kanan have no chance left unless one of them, Kanan, makes a comeback, which is impossible because, like everyone else in his family, he is too proud to do so. It's fascinating to watch Kanan, who is so plainly angry at being misled and treated like a child, come to the conclusion that the best course of action is to emulate his mother. That desire to rise above the wrongdoers, whatever happened to that? It was evident in that picture of him seated on one side of the table with the other three staring back at him that Kanan had backed himself into a complete corner with Snaps, Pop, and Ronnie. He previously took a side, but that side is now opposed to having any sides at all.
Your mom's is fucking with our investment.
Messing with our money.
Whether he likes it or not, Kanan finds himself back in the center as they aim for complete dominance. Kanan can put on a brave face and act as though he trusts Ronnie more than Rackle, but he should be smart enough to realize that Ronnie can use him or her at any time. Rackle is still his mother even if she deceives him, acts as she pleases, and has put him in some really terrible situations, and it never will. What choice will he make, his mother or his new business, if he is asked to make that call? Given that the Kanan of the Power days was capable of anything, it can occasionally be challenging to distinguish this Kanan from future Kanans. However, this Kanan is not even old enough to vote. In a classroom, Kanan still needs to show his face to avoid the cops coming hunting for him. Though I think we can all agree that he will act in Kanan Stark's best interest, it remains to be seen what he will decide to do. He's turned into that kind of kid, and it won't change.